am excited. So hopefully, if you are joining us live, if you happen to have trait 6, let us know. Pop it into the chat box. For those of you who are watching the replay on Facebook, sorry about that. I could not get into Facebook to do it live, but we're posting the replay. So hopefully you're watching this and would love to have your comments anyway. So you can, if something pops for you during today, just write in there that you're watching the replay and then let us know what really resonates for you, if anything, about trait 6. And I'd love to welcome Leanne and Rob, who are co-hosting with me today. As you remember, last week, Karen had a little accident on a bike and broke her wrist. And so she had surgery yesterday. And my guess is that she's pretty stoned today and is on pain meds and recovering. And she's recovering well. So we're super grateful for that. We miss you, Karen, and we're so glad that you're okay. And Natalie is out salsa dancing, which she's been on a wait list to do this for a long time. And, you know, as a builder, she does what she loves and she loves what she does. However, she needs to have a break too. So she is salsa dancing tonight in Amsterdam, and we are saying a big hello to her too as well. And Tuck wasn't able to make it, but we have the 3 of us, and we are going to carry on. Today's September 15th, 2020, and we are at episode 70, and I'm really glad each and every one of you are here. So before we dive into the energies of today and what's going on, hey, Leanne, you want to say anything today? You want to say hi, let us know what's going on in your world?
What's going on in my world? Typical express builder. Head down, ass up, always. It's all good. That's
Head
my
down,
life.
ass up. Oh my God. And did you guys, if you can't read her sweatshirt right now, it's farming because days off suck. That is a perfect express builder right there.
It is.
Oh God, you're funny. You crack me up, girl. And Rob, how about you? What you got for us, brother?
I'm just glad to be here. If I feel a little bit out of touch or not as connected, it's because I can't stop staring at this thing in the center of my iPad that says waiting with the circle going around and around. So I guess at this point I'm partially hypnotized by it. And if I continue to watch it, I think that I will feel the journey through duality via the 6.
Right on, right on. Well, welcome.
Our hands every now and again and try to snap you out of that.
So good, so good. Okay, so well, let's carry on, and we'll wake Rob up if we need to. And welcome everyone who's joining us live. Super happy you're here. Okay, so today we are, we're going through this journey of through duality. And it's all about bonding with others, about connection. And today specifically, we're talking about trait 6. It's in line quality 1. So we're just kicking this buddy off, kicking 6 off. And I happen to have it, I think, 3 times in my design. So it's a potent one for me. And I'm sure we all have a lot to say about this one. I think you have it too, Rob. And Leanne, do you have 6? I can't remember. No. Okay. So we talked about just going through bonding here. We talked about trait 40, deliverance, the love of work, delivering what's promised. That's that. What is it? Head down, ass up, as Leanne was saying. And then the abstraction, which is trait 64, confusion as a source of inspiration. We love that one, don't we? And then we talked about realization last week, where it all makes sense. We actually talked about 64 and 47 last week. And here we are in friction. Isn't that fun? Friction, creative potential, and the source wave. Yeah, so good, so good. And then next week, we'll be talking about determination, or trait 46, being at the right place at the right time. So again, we're all in bonding, all in this duality and connection. Leanne, would you like to do a little quickie, you know, what's going on just today? This is today's chart here at the time that we're beginning today's BG5. Do you have anything you'd like to keynote for us?
So I keep saying this and it's repetitive, but 2020 is our awakening.
Our awakening, yeah.
The awakening and the awareness that comes in with that creative process from the 61 to the 24. It has been there, and the 61 is going to continue to be there all year. And it's important for us to know, okay, what is the mutation that's happening for us? That 2212, it brings so much mutation. It's this openness. What are we open to? What kind of new things are popping into us? What are we absolutely closed off to? And now we're looking at this 6. And the 6 really is that diaphragm that allows us to breathe in what we need to. And remember, we are the breath of the stars. So what are we breathing in? What mutation are you bringing in? What is that source wave that is bringing you so much wisdom today? It's critical for us to be in contact with our breath. You know, and you know this, Chris. This is a part of your profit potential.
Mm-hmm.
Breath work, breath work, breath work. When we can breathe and feel that connection, all of a sudden we don't need to be distracted by what's going on in the world. We can be fully collapsing our own quantum reality right in front of us, moment by moment, by our decision making.
Mm. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I love it. And for those of you who are my students and we're in Foundation 2, remember today we were just, this is what Leanne was just keynoting. We're talking about circuitry, and we were talking about individual circuitry and the 1222 individual circuitry and the 6124. Also individual circuitry mutation. And that is exactly what Leanne was bringing up there. So thank you so much for that, Leanne. Oh, so good. The breath. Trait 6, growth cannot exist without friction. Now, how many of us are just like, yeah, no thanks, I don't want any friction. But the thing is that, yeah, exactly. That is where it all happens. That is where this, you know, the good stuff occurs, right? So the friction you create when you're with another has creative potential. Again, those of us who have trait 6, especially in an undefined emotional intelligence function, it's like, yeah, I don't want to do any friction. I'm out. You know, that I don't want to get intimate with that. I don't want to feel that. Ugh. And yet, oh my gosh, what's created in that is amazing. So it produces the heat essential for growth. And when resonance is reached or a conflict is resolved, there's an opening to proceed forward. This is what Leanne was just referring to. It's like a diaphragm. It's opening and closing. I see it's like an aperture, opening and closing, and using our breath to do that, to facilitate this. Readiness and fertility are both subject to specific timing of the emotional wave, because again, we're in the emotional intelligence function, either open or closed to intimacy. Oh Lord, have mercy. I know this one. Oh God, it's almost painful. It's really, if I break down tears here, people, just, you know, bear with me. Okay. Having healthy boundaries and determining the role you will play in the endeavor you have come together to create helps decide who is correct to connect with or not, and when. It's always about timing and titration, as my scientist stepdad says. It's always about timing and titration. So, Leanne, anything else you want to add here about any of these?
One of the things that Ra always said was, there is no creative process without friction. And, you know, just for example, take sex, right? We're in the emotional intelligence. It's sex based. And in order to have friction, or in order to create a baby, what's going on? There's lots of friction happening there. So that creative process always has this heat. Mutation has heat. In order for us to mutate, that brings such a warmth and heat and this friction that has to happen.
Yep. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Rob, how about for you? What do you have to add?
So yeah, right before this this BG5 live, I had a call that felt like friction. Was
Mm.
working with a colleague, trying to get some help with some business development. I'm pursuing a particular account here locally in Dallas, and there was just pushback. And so we kind of talked through it, and then at the very end, it ended off where she was like very helpful in giving me information that I was looking for, and we, I was already willing to reciprocate, but she was basically, we ended the call with, just let me know if there's any other ways that I can help, so that she was wanting to help further create within this, the pursuit of the account. But we only got there through, it was a friction-filled phone call, for sure.
Nice example.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? It'll show up in lots of different ways. Yeah, for sure.
And then Rob, just surrendering to it, right? Surrendering to that friction.
Yeah, well, no, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I was sitting in that moment, and just as if I talk about this a lot, being in the boat, in the stream, and just going with the flow. I was just noticing from an objective viewpoint that, like, hey, there's friction here. It's not personal. It just is, friction, and we're going through this. Instead of, pushing back harder or trying to assert myself or anything like that. We had a really good conversation, although there was friction. Friction doesn't make things bad, right? So, yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah. If you can keep breathing through it, right?
Yeah.
Keep breathing through it. So here we have quality one. So we're in quality one today, and it's about retreat. And that quality one has that authority. So the realization, or retreat, about authority. So the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage, but folly. Wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage, but folly. Interesting. The elevation is the emotional stability to accept conflict, and the power of regeneration that can embrace retreat as a phase and not a failure. And again, that's kind of what you were talking about there, Rob, a little bit. And the challenge is emotional instability in times of conflict, the inferiority complex where retreat is experienced as personal weakness. And again, this is where we would see like that judgment against ourselves or others for how we dealt with it. So it's I always say, with emotional intelligence, it's for those of us who have it undefined, it's increasing our capacity for conflict and developing our emotional stamina, if you will. And for those of you who have it defined, it's like being able to recognize when you're in it and what that impact has on others. So all of us have our work to do, whether we have it defined or not. Anything that's striking you, either of you, about these two, the elevation or the challenge? Anything popping?
Well, again, like not fighting against the stream, like the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage, but folly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That we just have to retreat. And in order to be an authority, watch it. Be an authority of conflict by being able to witness it. Study it. Watch people's, like Rob kind of pulled himself out of the conversation and watched that conversation and went, oh, okay. There's friction here. I don't have to push up against it because it's going to be useless to do so, right? Yeah. And it doesn't create a weak position. It actually gives you strength because you're able to pull up out of it and go, I witness it. I recognize it. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And then again, like keep breathing through it because it wants to run, it really does. Believe me, people. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm I'm like, how fast can I get out of here?
Yeah.
Right.
Super uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally.
And yet it's so fascinating because that's more on a personal level, like when it's really the personal, intimate, you know, like more family. But when it comes into, you know, I was a therapist, now I do coaching and consulting, like when it's really uncomfortable with, like I can be with clients who are in conflict, I can be with someone who's experiencing that like when I'm in it, but man, if I anticipate it, I could, you know, especially when I was younger, I was like, see ya, I am out. And, you know, I just didn't have that capacity. And that's part of the wisdom of being able to sit and breathe and have that capacity. Yeah. So.
And then when we look at where is it being birthed from? It's being birthed out of confusion and realization.
Yep.
Right? So, you know, it's coming from that birthing place of, whoa, there was confusion here, right? Came to realization, see the conflict and move on, right?
Right. So 64, confusion, 47, realization, 6, still that friction, but there's that, but getting that emotional clarity even right around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing in how we're moving through. It's so interesting how that works. So Karen has it, and Karen is again not here today, but she has it in her. This is her maturing energy, I believe, right? So this is 3, and then yeah, I have it 3 times. The 6, 4. Oh, and then detriment twice. Isn't that fun? Yeah, that's so fun. And treat. And then in the second line, I have it in my truth and transformation. So yeah, it's definitely been, and I have it in an undefined function. This is a big one for me. And then, well, let's come back here. So, I'd love to hear. We do have a few people have it here that are with us. Does anybody have a question about it or aha that you'd like to share? Just raise your hand if you'd like to either come on and say something, or if you have something, you just put it in the chat box. And while we're waiting for that, I'll go ahead and share something. What wants to be shared here? What wants to be shared here today about the 64, and this goes back to what Leanne shared about it being like the diaphragm and how it's open or closed for intimacy. So remember, it's across from the 59, which is intimacy, and you know, sexual intimacy in many ways, but also, you know, just that it's physical, it's tribal, it's that touch, it's, you know, closeness, that kind of intimacy. But here we're talking about the emotional intelligence, and I do think of it like this aperture that opens. It's like I'm open and available for intimacy and depth and friction and conversation, or whoop, nope, I'm not. And there's nothing, and it's very physical. It's not something. What I have found is you cannot consciously go, okay, I'm going to open up. It's like the body, and this is where the breath comes in, because the breath can relax that, all the musculature and everything holding it. It's like, relax it and see if we can build that. But again, it's emotional, and you cannot force emotional openness. It's there is either the ground or the field or the availability for emotional vulnerability and authenticity, or there's not. And it's like we can cultivate that in ourselves, for ourselves. I feel like that's so much of what I do and what I teach my clients. And yet at the same time, like, if the field isn't available, the field isn't available. And we can feel that also. And it's not something that you can sort of make yourself do.
Well, it really, it's designed to be selective, right?
Yes.
Because the 59 is breaking down the barrier, and the 6 is saying, this is the right emotional intelligence for me or not. And it can create conflict because you have the 59 going, hey, I want to be intimate. Hey, let's be intimate. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
So there's this conflict there. Like, it's not the right emotion. So it's okay to be selective. It's okay to just breathe in who you need to. We don't have to take in everybody. And, you know, having it undefined like you do, that's your superpower. That's how you filter the world. I will take you in or not. And they can perceive it as a conflict, but for the most part, it really isn't, how do I say, it isn't designed, quote unquote, to be a conflict. It's, listen, I can only take in what I can. But the 59s can take that in a preconceived notion of what we say conflict is, right? Right? Because Ra always played on words, right? So if we look at the complete Brave I Ching, which doesn't want to come through because it's the same color as my ocean, but he wrote that for our awakening process. This isn't actually all the languaging that he would actually put in an awake book. So it's about being able to recognize that conflict has more than one meaning. Right?
Yes. I love that. That we can also create that conflict and quell it, you know, or, you know, because this is the source wave of the emotions. So we can either stir up that conflict or calm it very, very quickly. Yeah. Amazing. Someone else named Rob.
I just moved her over to attendees.
Okay. Because I was going to say,
with Rob sending out his link, my guess is that.
Got it. Okay, cool. I was just going to say, did someone want to come say something? There you go. Right on. Okay.
So there's a question here. So explain the difference in handling energy when gate 6 is defined and when gate 6 is not defined. So I guess my question would be defined in the center or actually the gate itself not defined. So
yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
So if I'm looking at it, like, for example, like Chris has it on an undefined center. So it's inconsistent. She's gaining tons and tons and tons of wisdom there as to what to be selective about. But if you look at Karen, and she has it in a defined center, she's actually the source of that source wave that's coming out of the emotional center. So I don't know if that helps the question.
Yeah, that's great. And then,
like,
go ahead.
Like Rob, you don't have it defined. The gate, you have nothing hanging there. So,
right.
How would you say it plays off for you?
So, you know, what I tell clients is, you know, just using myself and Chris as an example, wherever your functions are white or wherever you are white in this chart, that's your nurture, right? And where you're colored in, that's your nature, you know? So Karen is here to give in that respect, right? She's the source, like you mentioned, and Chris and I are kind of here to receive. And through that is how we are able to be wise in this area. Professionally for me, I do have the 59 reaching out for the 6. And so now that this trait 6 is activated within our environment, I am able to break down some barriers, such as today's call. But I wasn't trying to. It wasn't like doing this, right? It was, again, just I am, you know, those colored parts of my chart. And in that conversation, the barriers just kind of naturally broke, right? And professionally, I'm known for being able to do that. That doesn't mean that I can do it with everybody, right? Because sometimes the door is open and sometimes the door is closed, like Chris was talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, you're emotional though, right, Rob?
No, I'm not.
No, yours is undefined. Okay.
I'm wide open there.
You're wide. That's right. You're wide open there. I don't think I have I might have your chart, but I'm not sure. I can't see all of the things.
Yeah. So when you're talking about conflict, it's like, see ya.
Yeah.
Or it plays out in the other way, you know, let me make the environment in such a way so that you don't get upset.
Right.
Let me say yes so that you don't get upset when I really mean no. Like it continues to play out that way. So
yes.
People pleaser, right?
totally. That is where the people pleaser lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
I share often with my clients, I say, you know, codependency is energy mismanagement. Energy mismanagement. It's managing everybody else's energy so we feel okay in our own body, right? So it's like, ooh, I don't want to create conflict there, so I'll take care of whatever it is. I'll make them feel better so that I feel safe, so that I feel okay. And once I've been playing with this for a long time, because you can imagine, like, and I didn't even see it. Like, I didn't even see I was doing that, even though I've been talking about this for years, right? I was just like, oh, yeah, I can see it. And then I'm like, oh, shit. There it is. So anyway, it's like, where am I managing other people's energy, making sure they feel okay, they feel better? Because if they don't feel okay, and this is where my undefined emotional intelligence comes in, where I'm amplifying other people's emotions, I can feel the friction, I can feel what's going on, and it's like, ooh, I better take care of that. So that, because then I learned at an early age that when other people were happy, I felt better. And it's just this mechanics, right? It doesn't have to be this deep-seated psychological thing. It's just a mechanical thing. And so then I started learning that, okay, well, if I can either start friction, because there is something about, like, in my work where I see where people are avoiding the friction, and I'm like, all right, I'm going in where angels fear to tread. I have no problem. I can handle friction. I can handle that. I'm willing to have you not like me for you to have a breakthrough. Like, I'm in there. Let's do this. But then when it's a loved one, I'm like, yeah, not so much. I gotta go to the store. I'll see you later. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do anything to get out of it. So, or it's like, oh, let me make it, you feel better because I can feel your anger, and it is so uncomfortable in my body. Well, once I started understanding how this works, I stopped taking care of them and just started managing my own energy and taking care of myself, and let them take care of them. And does that mean the mechanics stop? No, the mechanics still happen. I'm still amplifying all those things. And this is where what Leanne was saying about the breath work. Number one, me breathing and staying grounded. And number two, looking at or feeling or sensing, being aware of, because this is an awareness function, aware of the other person's emotion and going, I am available and open and receptive to meeting or being with or helping or whatever the case may be that's appropriate in that moment with that emotion or not.
Yep.
And being okay with that, even if it causes conflict, even if that other person is like, hey, you're leaving me hanging. It's like, I'm not leaving you hanging. I just get that where you're at is not this, where you're at, you're not open and receptive to shifting where you're at. You want to stay where you're at. And I'm not going to jump in the pool with you. I'm just not. I'm not available for that.
Yep.
And so that is, in a lot of ways for me, that undoing codependency or energy mismanagement in a very mechanical sense. So I don't know, does that make sense to y'all? Like that click?
Yeah. The wisdom of this trait is so needed in the corporate world, especially in the division of HR.
Yeah.
Yes. This is an HR trait. It is an HR trait in the big.
It totally is.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, in my experience, the best way to, I guess, quelch and not amplify is to just let the person have a hissy fit because they can't break in. Like, have your hissy fit outside of my door.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring you in and let you in so that hissy fit affects me.
Because
So
that's jumping in the pool.
exactly.
Right? Instead of throwing a life, it's like jumping in the pool and then having that person pull you down, and then you both drown.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. I learned that through working with suicidal, but that doesn't work.
Nope.
You know?
And then all of a sudden the respect completely changes because they're like, oh, so it doesn't matter how much I push against your barrier, I can't break down that wall just because I'm acting like a doorknob. Oh, okay. So all of a sudden the respect changes, and then they can begin to manage their own energy as they come up to you as well.
Yes. And then I'm available for intimacy.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm there like 100,000%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah.
then we don't have to amplify.
Right.
It's a clarification process, right? That happens through us, that serves everybody in the whole process, right?
Yeah. Totally. Totally. This one's so powerful. It really is. I mean, it's the source wave of emotions. And so, an emotional intelligence. I mean, this is the seat of emotional intelligence. And it's like, and this is what connects us to each other. And that's why when, it's part of the HR department in a large organization, but it's also part of parenting. It's part of being in relationship and with our and our connection to what bonding. Remember, we're in bonding here.
Yeah.
So it's that friction, that are we able to stay in the friction long enough to break down the barriers appropriately, with respect, with love, true love, not the love bullshit that we do. Sorry, Karen, you're just gonna, we're dropping the S bombs and the F bombs. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, not sorry. You're getting the raw emotional version today.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress, but it's like Angela's laughing at us. Tanya too. So, but yeah, not the Hallmark version. We're getting the let's do this because we're in this together. We're in this together. Humanity.
And when emotions get heated, that's what's created in our world. Yeah. So again, this is a role gate. So if go back to your public role.
Yeah.
And what are you? Are you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So is there weakness? Is there advance? Is there allegiance? Is there kindness? Is there selfishness? Is there sympathy? Like, we have to go into that and say, okay, now how am I actually designed to interact with conflict? Yeah. And so for me, I'm a 1-3. It's about this weakness and strength and having an allegiance or a rejection. So rejection happens lots. I'm like, no, you're not getting in here. I don't need your drama. It's not healthy for me. So when I interact with people, I can recognize, is there strength in their emotional intelligence? Are they weak in their emotional intelligence? So that I can coach them to stand in the power of their truth versus letting that meddling mind create chaos in the world.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And what you just brought up about the mind is that, see, we have an emotional experience, and the emotional experience is a biochemical process. It's a wave, and it's a biochemical process that happens in the body. We can't control our emotions any more than we could change our eye color. I mean, you can't. It doesn't work. So, or to stop the sun shining or something. I mean, yeah, there's smoke and everything, but you know what I mean, like permanently. So so it's going to happen. And when we have an emotion, so much of the time we have something, but we don't know why we're experiencing it. Most of us don't pause long enough to go, huh, something just changed.
Right.
Why? What just happened? We go, you made me feel that way. Or,
Yeah.
it's your fault. Or we're experiencing
Yes.
it, and then we go, there must be a reason why I'm experiencing it. And the mind goes, oh, you want a reason? Oh, I'll give you a
Yes.
reason.
Yep.
And
Yep.
suddenly there's a big long story, and we're like, that sounds good. That's legitimate. That's exactly what just happened. You did it,
Yep.
and suddenly what? We have a battle and a war field, conflict.
Yep.
Because we weren't willing to pause and be present with the source of where this came from. Is it mine?
Yep.
Is it someone else's?
Yep.
Most of the time, what I feel is an amplification of what other people are feeling. Doesn't mean I don't have my own reality emotionally, but most of what I'm really perceiving in the world is what's going on out there. And if I'm not willing to pause and have discernment between, oh no, this is mine, this is my grief, this is my sadness, this is my anger, this is my joy, and what brings those things, if I don't do that, then I'm just willy-nilly whatever anyone else is sending over. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take some of that, and I'll make up a story about that, and I'll take some of that, make up a story about that, and blah, blah, blah. And then we're off and running, literally, the mind is just running. And that's our reality.
Back to what Rob says, then you have this stuff happening in the workplace.
Yes.
So-and-so did this. She touched my stapler. She doesn't wash her dishes in the sink. Right? And we have all this conflict because those beings are not standing in their purpose. The minute we're not standing in our purpose, the mind meddles.
Yes.
And creates made-up conflict. This conflict is not about the mental conflict. This conflict is that emotional wave. This has nothing to do with the mind's meddling.
Yeah.
Like you say, Chris, it's a biochemical. But what do we experience at work? If there's HR people on here, how many of them are experiencing the natter and the chatter and the conflict that's all created from this? And none of it is intelligence. It's all blame and shame and stuff that shouldn't even be in the workplace.
Yeah. Well, work begins on a serious nature anyway, because it's always about money. So it's got to be serious. This has to be serious. And so everybody shows up, and I am generalizing here. I got permission to do that before we started. So everybody begins in an emotional nature anyway. So, imagine all of the people who are amplifying that don't even know that they are amplifiers.
Yeah.
And that bounce back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Mm.
Yep.
So it's not a wonder that we see on LinkedIn or wherever you might be reading business periodicals, the subject of emotional intelligence is everywhere.
And nobody really actually knows what it is, though.
Exactly.
Right? That's the other thing.
Precisely. And Leanne, you and I talked about this in that interview about, this is a body thing. The satisfaction, the peace, the surprise, that is a cellular, it's a cellular thing. It's not a mental thing. And same thing with emotional intelligence. But there will be 5 more books that'll get published this year, put on the shelf, that all go up here for the study, like we talked about, Leanne, to try to control it. Yep. And so the battle will continue.
It's so bullshit. There's a very well-known group who teaches, they're probably the foremost teachers of emotional intelligence out there. And a couple years ago, while I was still new about design, I was studying it and everything, but I hadn't really dove yet into the emotional intelligence aspect in a really deep way with design. And I was taking their test for, test your emotional intelligence. And when I was done, I was like, I'm like a 5-year-old imbecile. Like the way they describe it, like I shouldn't even be, and I felt so ashamed. I felt like, oh my God, I'm a therapist. I'm like trained. Like I'm a trained professional, people. I should have passed that with flying colors, like, and I looked at it and I was like, screw that, right? And then I started diving into more design and mechanics. And then I looked at it and I went, oh my God, of course, because they have a whole matrix that's around if you have it defined. If you don't, there's a whole nother reality out there. And even if you do have it defined, there's also more of a reality there. And I thought, you're right, it's all coming from the mind, and what we think of is emotional intelligence instead of the experience of it. And once I started diving deeper again into design, and of course you can see what I was just like, it's unconscious for me, and it's places where I'm going to have a lot of challenges that of course I couldn't see it and I didn't want to look at it before, but then once I really started engaging with it, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much freedom here in the way we teach it at BG5. There is so much freedom. And every time I go talk to companies or groups or families about emotional intelligence, light bulbs go off. It's like there's instant shame goes from here down to like nothing. Like they just, oh my God, my whole life. Oh my God, that makes so much sense why my boss. Oh my God, that makes so much sense why the teammates. Oh my God, that makes so much sense why my parents. Blah, 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 blah. Like you just name the situation and suddenly everybody's life makes sense. And I know that was true for me. And it's huge. It's a game changer for sure. Yeah. There's a little more insight into me. Okay, so let's look at someone a little more famous, shall we? How about Tommy Lee Jones? This guy's so fun. Okay, so he has trait 6-1 in his conscious core essence, and his life work theme is experience. Use your experience with conflict and crisis to hold the bond of intimacy together, gaining experience through the loss of innocence. And for those of you who know Tommy Lee Jones, I'd like you to just for a moment picture the films that he's been in. Does he not totally epitomize that? Precise, private, and sometimes prickly. Oh yeah, for sure. Tommy Lee Jones made an art of playing the dark side of American manhood as a disarming, almost charming way. He's not known for courtesy to the press, resulting in less than sympathetic interviews. And he starred in roles like Agent K in The Men in Black, the U.S. Marshal in The Fugitive, the villain Two-Face in Batman Forever, Warden Dwight in Natural Born Killers, and CIA director in Jason Bourne. So anything you guys would like to add about Mr. Jones here? Mr. Jones?
Just spot on.
Yeah, right? Oh, goodness. How about you, Leanne? Anything's popping?
A prickly manifester, prickly innovator. Sorry.
Yep. He's got that pure innovator, 3635. Look at that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, he also has the 38, 39 there too. That extra prickly, extra things that he's going to bring to the table too. Yeah, I love it. Linda asks, can you talk more about the 2 different meanings of conflict, please? Linda, did we answer your question in our musings and ramblings, or do you still need clarification? Just let me know in the chat box there. And does anybody else have anything they would like to add? Any other thoughts or, yeah. Who's here and our attendees? Nope, everybody's quiet. Everybody's quiet. Oh, I don't think you answered it. Okay.
So anytime I look at any of the words in the Revi Ching that Ra presented to us, we have to go past the meaning that the Webster Dictionary provided to us, and we have to experience the meaning in real life. So conflict can be two things. Conflict can be you did that to me, or conflict can be the process of friction that allows us to be creative. So there's always the this and the that of conflict. That's how I see it. Most of the words in the Revi Ching, as you experiment more with your own decision-making strategy and you get closer to your own frequency, all of a sudden you recognize that these words are not always the negative words that are put out in the Webster Dictionary. There's always the positive aspect of it. So, you know, that's as far as my languaging can go. But
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And for me, I think of it as there is and the keyword being creative, right? So as an artist myself, like when I approach a blank canvas, or I even approach a problem on my canvas, like I make brush strokes and then I solve problems constantly. There's the conflict of making a mark and breaking up the image or the plane or the space. And then it's like, how am I going to respond to that? And there's oftentimes a conflict around that, or there's an emotion that I want to express. And it's like, can I be with it long enough to work through the conflict of how I'm going to express that through paint, or through words as a writer, or through music as a songwriter, or, you know, poetry or whatever. And that there's that conflict that allows us to get to a place of clarity. And but there's also the conflict that I think I don't know if yes, there's like two different kinds, but there's also, it's like, maybe it's more just how we approach it. We either are engaging with it, we're open to it, we're receptive to it, we're willing to play with conflict without judgment, or we're going to judge the heck out of it and ourselves and the other, and we're going to be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then we don't get the benefit of the friction of, you know, we want everything, you know, I'm going to be really crass here. We want to walk around with KY jelly in our pocket all the time, because we just want everything to be smooth.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're just like, just make this please, not, you know, like, this doesn't feel very good. You know, and so anyway, so that I feel like it's like we're either gonna embrace it and go with it, and we're gonna see the love that's in it and through it and on the other side, or we're gonna close off to it, and we're gonna miss out on what could be created.
Yeah. And any of you guys that have it in your career design, you're the representation of it. So you guys get to present to us with, what does conflict mean? So Chris just talked about it in art. Tanya is now in here having a conversation. You know, I learned about conflict in art class when the teacher took her hand and smeared my paint, then challenged me to make something beautiful from it. I went from anger to creative in a hard process. And that's the representation. Rob and I are here to learn from your representation of what does conflict mean. Now, what Rob and I could do is we could make it a mental process, and then we could take your process and we can amplify it and throw it back at you as junk. Or we can take our 30,000 foot view and take the absolute wisdom of it. So Chris showed her wisdom, and so did Tanya. So now Rob and I get to learn from that, so that when we do bump into conflict, so we're on the phone with a coworker, and it's like the conversation isn't going how our mind wants it to go, we can pull ourselves out of that and go, okay, where's the wisdom here? I'm not able to break down her barrier. Okay, let's see what happens as we walk through this, because emotional intelligence takes time.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And Lisa says, my mom had the 6, fought with everyone, not fun to watch. That would be an example of not using it in the wisdom, right? It's the challenge, more like that emotional instability, and who just, or starting a fight to start a fight, and not really understanding, not being willing to actually, like, there's some people that will just start a fight to start a fight for the emotional release of it, versus the creative process of getting to, that's their expression of the creative process. They just have a release, and again, you could think about that in a sexual way as well. It's like, who's just doing it to get the release, versus are you creating deep intimacy? I mean, there's many, many, many layers and levels of this, from the very crass base, like, let's make a baby and, let's get our rocks off and have fun, versus let's, like, get in there and really be in the creative, conflictual process of communion with one another, of talking with one another, of being with one another, and working through conflict. And it's so much about how we approach it. And again, I see it as our job is to increase our capacity for conflict and the creative potential that is there. Yeah. So.
And then Rob and I can make our own choices through our own decision-making, are we going to stand in the way of that release? Or are we just going to step aside and let it go by, because there's no wisdom there. We don't need that. But anybody that's releasing and there's wisdom, we can catch a little bit of that and go, oh, okay, that's yummy. That's intelligent. Let's move forward, or not, right?
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And Terry says the interpretation of how emotional intelligence is being measured made sense. Measuring against being defined is only a smidgen of the intent. It's much more than that. Exactly, Terry. Totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Lisa says I tried to talk with her, my mom, with the 6, but she'd always walk away because I didn't fight. Yes, right? And that, again, like you were like, there's not intelligence here. I'm not going to fight. And yes, this is such a perfect example, Lisa. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know that we could talk about this for probably 6 more hours. I know I could. But we're at the top of the hour, so almost, we're getting close. So let's just look again. If you want to watch past episodes of our BG5 lives, you can find those on our website. You can also get a free report I know most of you that are here watching this right now, you already know all of this, but just in case you happen to be brand new, you can find more out about your design and your business design on the BG5 or the BG5businessinstitute.com. We also have some courses and programs. I know Tuck's foundation course is starting tomorrow. I believe you could still join it because the first class is typically free. So if you just want to, check it out and see, is this correct for me or not? You can still join. And then Leanne, you have a class that's coming up too. And I know we've got some certification and all kinds of goodness starting as well this month. And just want to thank you all for being here. And thank you so much, Leanne and Rob. Are there what are the things that people should pay attention to this week with Trait 6 activated for all of us? What should we watch for?
Is what's coming towards you intelligent or not? Right? Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, it's just, what was I going to say? Well, just watch for your reaction to this, conflict and what is coming towards you, right? Practice the art of coming from the body versus the mind versus the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel, to me, I have this is so much, to me, is about equanimity and like this peacefulness and this sense of, even though there could be chaos and conflict and everything happening around, it's sort of like what's the truth, the intelligence in it that Leanne was, you know, where's the intelligence in there? And I'm going to find that, and I'm going to engage with that. And how can I watch, as Rob was saying, like watch that conflict, and how am I reacting to the am I amplifying it? Am I avoiding it? Am I starting something? Am I trying to finish something before it's really, you know, again, as an artist, it's sort of like, yeah, I'll just like leave that for later. It's like, where can we just lean back into it and like re-engage with it if we're open to it, and play with it a little bit more, so that we can complete it in its natural course, without avoiding or running away. So have fun with this one, everybody. This is a real ass kicker. So, but you know, tons of intelligence and tons of wisdom that's available to all of us, and lots of cool bonds can be created here as well. So again, thank you everyone for being with us today. And thank you so much, Leanne and Rob, for your wisdom and your intelligence today. It's always, always a gift for me to be with both of you. And just want to say thanks to everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Chris. Good job.
Thank you, Chris.